Hey, welcome to Widow Too Soon. This is Mark Massaro. I'm here with my friend and co-host, Michelle Bader. Michelle, what's up?
You know what? I'm doing good. It's a beautiful fall day.
Awesome. I know, isn't it awesome?
It's
I love it.
awesome.
It's so awesome.
It's so awesome.
I know, I realized I said awesome twice. That's
It's
okay.
it's really awesome. So yeah, I can share with you some things that have been going on. So here's a big one. I actually haven't told you this yet. So it brings up a little bit of grief. My son Peyton was diagnosed with scoliosis, which
Oh,
sounds scary, but it's just a curvature of the back.
yeah.
And so, but when you say your son's been diagnosed with, it's a little bit
Yeah.
scary. And so I have an appointment in a couple of days with his doctor to talk about what to do. And we all already made a physical therapy appointment. So I actually found out like some of my nieces and nephews have had it. Lots of friends, their kids have had it. It's very common. And
Okay.
all you have to do is some exercises to help, like with the
Oh,
curvature of
good.
the spine. So it's nothing big, but it's just anything like that. And he was scared, like, what is this? And like, I'm like, it's not cancer. It's not like that. I have to explain it to
Yeah,
him. So he got kind of worried, but
sure. Yeah.
I'm just not worrying about it. So that was something big that happened this last week. I am excited because I enrolled in the John Maxwell Leadership Academy. Basically, it's called something like that. Basically, what's going to help me learn how to speak and coach. And so that's exciting. So I just started, I just signed up today. So super excited about that. Let's see what else. I've been enjoying the nice fall weather. So in Washington, it's probably like 60s and it's really nice out. So I've been running a lot and just enjoying, like, I love running in the fall. It's so beautiful. Don't you love it?
I do. It's my favorite time of year.
You love running and
It's
dancing.
so awesome.
How is it? It's so awesome. So let's see what else. I don't know. What's been happening with you? I'll tell you something else if I remember it, but
Um, well, a lot of stuff actually.
okay.
I will not get into the details for now, but I'm not working at my job anymore,
Okay.
and I am homeschooling, helping homeschool my kids.
Nice.
It's actually been a tremendous blessing um, to get that involvement, and
Yeah.
the friend of mine who's been homeschooling my kids, it's a lot for her because
Mm-hmm.
she has five kids in different grades and different
Well,
ages, and
yeah, it's hard.
I was just having these overwhelming feelings. This is part of the stuff that was bugging me a couple weeks ago, is that I feel like because she took on my kids, that her kids' education is lacking or suffering or whatever you
Mm,
want to say. And that really was like really hurting my heart, bringing me a lot of grief, and not like grief like over Lacey, but just grief that my situation is becoming a burden to somebody. That was how I was projecting it. And
mhm.
so a lot of changes have gone on. And so now for now, I'm helping homeschool my kids, and it's just been an
Nice.
awesome, awesome blessing. Um, and yeah, that's about all the big stuff. I mean, it's pretty huge, but
Yeah,
it's,
that is huge.
it's
So
like I don't have to go to bed at 8 o'clock every night anymore,
nice.
and stuff like that. Get up at 4 and carrying my kids out of bed and stuff like that. So that's been huge, huge blessing.
Yeah. What's your favorite subject to teach? Do you have one yet?
You know what? It's only been like 3 days
Okay.
so far. So I'm still like learning
Yeah.
what's going on. And so I'm just kind of
Uh-huh.
jumping in where I can or whatever. But
Yeah.
watching the kids learn, helping my son Luke learn how to read.
Mm. Oh, he's so
Um,
smart.
it's so cute. It is so cute watching him like
Is
cat,
he
cat,
he's starting to read?
cat. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
But just hearing him like sound things out,
Oh,
like, oh my gosh,
I
it's so
love that.
cute. And yeah, and he's smart. He's like a whiz in math. Like
Mm-hmm.
he loves numbers. It's like an obsession. Everything is
Mm-hmm.
numbers, like
Mm-hmm.
everything. Daddy, there's 8 white cars, like just driving down the street. Oh, there's 3 lights on that stoplight or
I
whatever,
love it.
like everything is just, he's very math minded. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's really like cool to see, because Lacey was like that.
Yeah. Oh, I
And
love that.
it's really neat to like see that in my kids, see anything of her traits in my kids. And I was today I'm doing some stuff in the garage, and I finally pulled down Lacey's like snowboarding equipment and
Mm.
golf clubs and stuff like that, and I'm selling them. And for me, it's not, I don't have a problem getting rid of them. Like I know a lot of people struggle
Yeah.
with that. It's just not
Right.
I'm okay with it. But it did honestly, like, it was pretty hard, like going through her snowboarding bag and just remembering her
Oh
wearing
yeah.
this jacket. And oh, I remember I have a kiss from her, and or a picture of a kiss from her when she was wearing this beanie. And
Right.
so it was just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of threw me off a little bit. But
Yeah.
I was holding on to the stuff thinking my daughter might want it someday. And I was
Mhm.
like, this is dumb. Like, these golf clubs are going to be so old and
Right.
outdated if she ever is interested in golf. Like, I might as well sell them while they're
Right.
still worth a little bit of money. And, same with the snowboarding gear. Like, this stuff's just getting ruined and,
Yeah.
sitting in my garage or whatever. Over time, it'll be cracked and brittle. And
Mhm.
by the time she's old enough for a board this big or whatever. Well, not that Lacey was tall, but you know what I mean. So anyways, there's that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much the gist of what's been going on with me. But yeah. So today, we are going to talk about a topic that we've talked about doing for a while,
Mhm.
called Don't Fall for Counterfeit Comfort. So you actually came up with this title,
I
and
did.
I loved it because it really makes a lot of sense. And from being in a lot of different widow groups on Facebook at
Mhm.
one point, I saw that a lot of people were falling for counterfeit comfort.
Mhm. For sure.
So, as believers, we know where our comfort comes from. But
Mhm.
what do you think of? Why did you come up with that title? Like, what did you see that made you want to give people the advice to not do that?
Yeah, it's actually a chapter in my book. It's one of the chapters I've fully written. And, it was from seeing all of these. Okay. So when I first became a widow, I was like, I hate the word widow. It makes me think of this lady in a black dress with like white hair and a bun and cats crawling on her. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not going to be that person. I don't want to be identified as a widow. And then and I'm not going to like reach out to widows. Like, I don't want to do widow ministry, but God was like, yes, yes. Like, I started seeing these people like talk about like just having sex with random people and, just all the things that I was seeing. And I was like, okay, they need to know where their comfort comes from. Not like in a judgmental way, but like just seeing the need, like, oh my goodness, there's so many people who are going to the wrong things and just wanting to get comfort from shopping or food. Or I mean, there's so many things that when you're just lost in the beginning, it's so overwhelming and it's so like huge. All of these things that are saying, look at me, I'll give you comfort. Look at me. And it's like these things that look so good. And it's not like shopping in of itself or talking to a man in itself. It's the using those things, like those aren't bad in themselves. Like it's using those things to get comfort. And I just saw such a need for this, so that's why I kind of chose this topic. And so that's why we're here today to talk about counterfeit comfort and the different things that we've seen. And maybe if we want to share some of our own, personal experiences with things that have given us comfort. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
chose it. Great question.
I like it. Thank you. I'm full of great questions.
I know you
Just kidding. Yeah, no, it really spoke to me because I was not only, it's very easy to see things other people are doing. It's a little harder to turn the mirror back on yourself
are. Oh
and
yeah.
see what you're
Mhm.
doing. And I first, when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing all these, like I learned, I'm just going to get real here.
Let's get real.
I learned this phrase called a widho. I'm sorry, that's kind of inappropriate, but I was
With
like, what is
hoe.
that? What is that? And then these women were all having a conversation in this Facebook group about all these men that they randomly hooked up with. And obviously, as humans, we all understand the desire to do something like
Right.
that. But I felt really bad because I was thinking in my heart, like, man, that's not gonna like fulfill anything for them.
Right.
It's actually
Make
gonna
them feel
bring them
worse.
more grief,
Yeah.
and they're gonna miss their spouse more. And
Yeah.
I read about so many of them talking about how they compared them to their late husband. It was
Yeah.
all women talking about
Mhm.
this. Of course, there were the men in there that were trying to sign up for the trying to fill out their application to fill this role for them. But it was a conversation amongst women, and they kept talking about the grief it was giving them because they didn't feel any affection for these men. It was just the physical act. And that it wasn't a good feeling because they didn't have any love for this person, and they felt dirty and cheap, and that they didn't feel like that until afterwards. And I was like, wow, yeah, I mean, I could totally see that that's how it would be, and so that was one thing. But when I reflected back on myself, I was like, gosh, like I'm doing this too. Like not the widow thing, but just saying like
in different ways. Yeah.
filling my mind with things so that I don't have to face what I'm feeling.
Right.
I'm going to things that feel good to me rather than, trying to focus on going to God. And I was just going to anything that was occupying my mind. So for me, it's been multiple things at different phases of time, but it was doing projects. I like fixing things. I like working on things. And I was on this mission to make my house feel different, because Lacey died in my house.
Yeah.
And no matter what, I kept seeing it everywhere I went, and I needed the house to feel different. And I just went on this mission of, it was spending, it was consuming all my time. I would start these huge projects that like I just didn't have the energy to complete, but I still started them. And then I got super overwhelmed and all this stuff. So that was one of my things that I did. I also, when I joined a widows group on Facebook, actually the one you and I met in, and I posted my story because, I posted what happened like everybody does when they first join the group. They introduce themselves and, say what they've been through, because I wanted people that understood. And one of the byproducts of that was getting a lot of women reaching out to me in private message. And I was enjoying it. I was enjoying having conversations with people, and it just would go deeper and deeper into where it was like, oh my gosh, like, wow, I like kind of have a relationship with this person. Not like a relationship, but like a relationship, like
a whatever ship, like
yeah, something like that. It's like I'm committed to talking to this person every day or whatever. And that was multiple people that that happened with, and I didn't like it. Honestly, I didn't like it. It got to the point where I was like, I was just looking for somebody that understood what I had been through. And then all of a sudden it's like, we're talking about totally different stuff. And so I like kind of backed away from that and left the group and stuff like that. Also, there was a lot of sadness, as you know. It was like every single day, multiple new people adding their stories. And it's just like, gosh, this is hard. I have more, but what about you? What kind of counterfeit comfort have you chased or have you witnessed?
Yeah, keeping it real. I haven't really been able to publicly like talk about a lot of things. Privately, I've had conversations with people, but you know what? It's part of my journey. And, I was just like you and, faithful in my marriage and didn't talk to anybody else. In fact, I didn't even have any friends that were males. Like I was just really just Luke, and, you wonder, I know you guys can relate, like you've been married for a long time and then you're like, do I still got it? Like, am I still, I mean, we all go through this, right?
I never had it, so I didn't go through that phase.
Not true. So I just was like, I wonder, like, am I still attractive? Would someone still talk to me? And I just kind of like started thinking about, who do I know that's single? Like, what kind of guys do I know that's single? And started reaching out and started talking, just like texting. There were a few phone calls with a few people, and just really, it was nothing bad, but it was that like trying to fill that void. Luke's gone. And instead, like the first 4 or 5 months, I was super focused. It was just God filling that void. And then it was literally like I woke up one day, I am not lying, and maybe this has happened to someone else. And I woke up and I thought, I can talk to men and that's okay. Like it was just like this thought in my head, because I always didn't, because I was married. And it was kind of an exciting thought. And that does not mean, and we may go into this in another episode, it doesn't mean I didn't love Luke. It does not respect your spouse.
Of course.
You wake up and you're like, I could talk to someone of the opposite sex that doesn't disrespect your love for them. But just started, getting to know different people, and they tell me I was beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And, it was like filling this void with this counterfeit comfort. And it was like not anything that was ever going to go anywhere. Like I knew it wouldn't, and so it was very counterfeit. And it was like, not that I wanted it to go anywhere at that point anyways, but that was definitely a way I filled my cup, and honestly still do at times. So that's a big one. And I'm just being honest because I know other widows and widowers have got to struggle with this, like, because you had your person who was there telling you these things all the time, good
Right.
morning, beautiful, blah, 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 blah. And then to be able to find that, it's comforting in the second, but it's also grief because you're like, you don't even know me. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, so.
And it's not as good as receiving compliments from your spouse.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It's like,
just
okay,
different.
these
You're
nice
like, oh, that
people.
didn't feel good.
Yeah. And this isn't exactly counterfeit comfort, but it's something that happened, and it may have happened to somebody else through the same time period. So my grief counselor told me that when you go through grief, it's like grief soup. Anything you've ever grieved comes up. And I had a situation with a youth pastor who had been inappropriate to me when I was a teenager. And that came back up, and I actually dealt with it. I'm not going to say any names, like it doesn't matter. But I was able to meet with this person with my counselor. I wrote a letter, and I told him in this letter how the domino effect that had happened in my life because of what he did to me when I was like 15 and 16. And it was the most liberating thing. And he's crying and all this stuff. And then I looked at him and I said, what you did is not okay, but I forgive you. And he's crying. And I was like, can I pray for you? And he's like,
wow,
I didn't expect that. I'm like, well, God forgave me, like, of all
yeah,
my sins, and was able. So that was like a big step. I remember that day. It was like so liberating to be like, whoa. And then, to really sit down with especially my daughter and like say, like, people can't do these things to you, make sure that she knows that never, she's like, I wouldn't let anybody talk to me like that. I wouldn't let. And so that was like huge thing that, and this is really hard. I don't talk about these things publicly. So this is like kind of a big step that I'm even talking about it. But I think that, especially women need to know, like, it's okay to face your person. If you have a way of facing them safely, like mine was with a counselor, it is so good for your soul to be able to tell this person that is not okay, but I forgive you. If you're at that place, don't say it if you don't really forgive them. So that was huge. I want to say another thing that's really hard to admit. I am in the same grief soup. What came up was if I'd married someone else, my husband wouldn't be dead. So I started like thinking about all my ex-boyfriends, and like, if I would have married this person, they wouldn't be dead. And I went through this thing, but I think that you can almost become a different person when you're going through grief. Like in the beginning, I remember looking in the mirror and like, who am I? Like, who am I? Like, what am I doing? Who am I? Who am I now? I don't know. And we did a whole episode, or I think you were not available that time, but I did one called Who Am I Now? And just like trying to figure that out. And you guys, these are real things. Like, I'm not holding it back. Like, these are things that have happened, and hopefully you can learn from it, that really the point is we're never going to be fulfilled. And I'm talking to myself today too, as I'm still in this weird like dating world and all this stuff. Like, a person is not going to fulfill us. Even when we were married, we still had voids. Like, sometimes we can like fantasize it in our head about how amazing it was. But if you think back, we still had voids. Like, our spouse didn't fill everything. Our only, like, it's Jesus. That's the only thing that can fill that vacuum, that void. And when we go to anything else, it's not going to complete us. And so,
right. I mean, we're created that way. We're created with a void in our heart, and the void is to be filled by God. And we try to fill it with new, fun, shiny things. And those things feel great for a little while. And then all of a sudden they don't matter to you anymore because they didn't actually fulfill the void, whether it's chasing, the next new toy. And I know every time I get a new car, I'm so excited about it. It's so great. I'm so excited and I'm looking forward to it. And then I get it and it's awesome. And I'm checking out all the new things it does and this and that. And then a couple of weeks goes by and you're used to it. And it's just another car. And then you're on chasing the next thing. If you don't have that understanding already. a lot of people do that. A lot of people think, oh, when I get this boat, I'll be happy. When I get
Yeah.
this camper, I'll be happy. When I get this vacation home, I'll be happy, or
When I
whatever.
get married, I'll be happy. And that's an easy thing to fall into as a widow again. Like, when I
Right.
get married again, it's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very true. And it's fascinating though, because we are built with that void. And so there's a lot of celebrities that you can look this up that will talk about their fame and fortune. Like I think it was Jim Carrey who famously said, I wish everybody could achieve fame and fortune so they could see it's not the answer.
That's good.
Because it's the same thing. Like what,
Mhm.
I mean, you get yourself $20 million per movie, and he's at the peak of Hollywood success, and he's sitting there telling you this isn't it. This isn't the answer.
Right.
Tom Brady, famous quarterback
Yeah.
at the time for the New York Patriots, or the new a lot of people would be mad at that. The New England Patriots, famously said this guy has everything he could want. He is an all-star quarterback, like, going to go down in the Hall of Fame for sure. Mansions and literally a supermodel for a wife and all these things. And he's like, and I look around and I think, is this really all there is?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it's easy to think that that this is going to make us feel better, or that's going to make us feel better. But in reality, the only thing that's going to fill the void in your heart is God, and God healing that void, and your joy, the joy of your salvation that completes your soul is what you should be, is what all of us should be constantly seeking. Yeah, I mean, I've had lots of things, and it's hard because you go through guilt if you're like talking to somebody or whatever. Even though my intentions talking to people were not dating or anything,
right?
Towards the beginning or whatever, was I just wanted somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
And it was exciting talking to somebody new, and exciting to somebody that hadn't heard my story and was telling me what a great husband I was, and it felt good for a little while. But then it was like, I feel bad. Like, I don't want to talk to these people. They're not lazy. Like,
right.
And it another thing that I did that I've talked about in past episode, I don't remember which one, but I started smoking pot thinking that was going to make me feel better. And it did for a short while, and then it didn't. And then it made me feel worse. And a lot of people do that, or they go to drinking, or a big one is they go to shopping. I also did that. I was on Amazon like every day, just like, ooh, what can I get? Like, I didn't need anything. I was just scrolling through. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then it would remind me of something else I wanted. And I'd go get that. And I'd have all this stuff in my cart. And it was like, I don't need any of this.
Yeah.
I just want to watch those shipping dates roll in. I want to get boxes in the mail and open them and go, ooh, this is exciting. Yep. Oh, this is cool. What is this? Oh, this is neat. Yeah, I like it. Oh, check this out. And then it's like, okay, well, if it was a new tool, it was like, okay, well, I go put it in my tools, and then don't look at it again until I use it or whatever. It's just, these things are all counterfeit. You think they're going to feel good. You think they're going to feel good, and they do, but then it's gone and you don't care anymore. And so yeah, I felt like you had something else you were going to say a minute ago.
I was just thinking about, so my kids are teenagers now, so I'm very, very open with them about talking about, like, God doesn't just like make rules because he's mean and all this, but there's reasons. And so kind of going along back to the people who, are like having sex just to try to fill this void. Well, what I tell my kids, there's like an emotional bond that forms when you have sex with somebody. And so that's why it's supposed to be for marriage. And so what the people, these people are doing, that filling the void with sex, you're just getting an emotional attachment to someone else, and you already went through grief. Like, what you're gonna do is bring more grief, like grief on top of grief. And I know there's people out there, like, I follow some people, like, I can't even remember her name, like, people who say they don't care, like they can just turn off their emotions, they can just do this, but there's going to be repercussions.
There it is.
Okay, there it is. Thesaurus. Haven't said that in a while. The thesaurus. So there's going to be things that are going to be like from that, not to mention all the other stuff, but just like even
Yeah.
that emotional bond, you are already grieving. Do you really? I hope this helps somebody. I hope somebody's like on the verge of like, I'm going to do this, and they hear this and they think, do I really want grief on top of grief? Like, you don't want grief on top of grief. Like, don't do it.
Don't add anything to the soup.
Don't add anything.
It's got enough ingredients as it is.
So much in your soup already. Like, seriously, this is a big one. I mean, and then there's just like all these things that in the moment, Satan makes sin look so tempting and like it's gonna be so good. But what is it? It's afterwards that you start feeling the guilt, you start feeling like, and then there's natural consequences for things. And so
sure.
I just really want to encourage the listeners to not, and not all these like shopping, like not everything, but there are things that are going to add more grief to your grief. And I don't want anyone to have to go through more grief than they already have to. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. No,
Thoughts on that?
totally. And in regards to the sexual stuff, like just aside from, I don't know, and this isn't for everybody. I just know for myself personally, it would feel like dirty and
Right.
wrong. And so let's say you get this, half hour, whatever of enjoyment, and then you're living with the consequences of that for a week or 2 weeks. And, it's just not worth it. But that's just the actual act. But let's say something else happens. Let's say that, for a man that you accidentally get somebody pregnant, or, same thing for a woman.
Right.
She gets pregnant. Like, imagine the grief that's going to bring you, that
and
you now
kids
have to face this situation that like you weren't ready for and weren't prepared for, with a person that you weren't. I mean, we're all, for the most part, I know the general age groups of the people that listen, we're mostly all, into adulthood, and beyond. We're very much adults, but so it's not like this is, a junior high, like, lesson or whatever. Right. But I'm just saying to to revisit the consequences of your actions, because for many of us, we're married for a very long period of time. It wasn't a scary thought.
Right.
Or there's a lot of diseases out there now that were not out there, or were not as prevalent when we were last single.
Right.
And that's just never been the kind of person I am anyways.
Right.
So exactly. I'm not really personally worried about, sleeping around aspect or whatever, and it's none of my business. I don't care what anybody else does, of course. That's not my business. But I'm just saying, from what I've seen in these widow groups, it is so sad when you read the story. There was this one woman in particular, that said how she's been like meeting and just going for it, just doing whatever she wanted. And so she said for the past couple months, every weekend she goes out and she meets guys at the bar and sleeps with them.
Oh, horrible.
And she was saying horrible. It's now been 2 months, and she's like, I've known that it makes me feel like crap.
Right.
But I still do it. And and now I'm left with these irreversible, I can't take it back. Yeah. And she's like, and my husband was the first person I was with.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, I just feel like such a dirty person. Like, I can't stop crying and all these things. And, so to each their own. And, we're all adults, and we're all held accountable to Christ, not to one another.
Right.
So I'm not, judging anybody or anything like that. I've got my own sins to worry about. I don't worry about what other people are doing unless they want my opinion. However, that being said, just from what I've seen, I know this is something that a lot of widows and widowers go through also. And I just want to hopefully cause people to think about, is this really worth it? Because there's so many things you just can't take back, I couldn't take back like any of the, I guess I could have returned some stuff to Amazon.
True.
But I mean,
they have a great return policy.
I can't take back that I was so proud of myself that I'd stopped smoking pot for so long, and then I just randomly started again. And it's like I started over. I can't take that back. Right. I can't say like, oh, I've been clean for this long, and I've done far worse things than pot. So it's like I'm okay. Like, as far as I'm forgiven, I've moved past it. I'm not really tempted by it anymore. But I can't take that back. I can't like unsmoke it, and so it just, it's just those things where I hope people will recognize what we're talking about as far as, wanting to find things that make you feel better, and that maybe we'll all partake in better wisdom of trying to go to the scriptures and have God speak to us before we, take that invitation out to the club or whatever, take people up on that. Because also women, you're very, particularly, you're very vulnerable.
Yes.
Men see, I've seen this so many times, where men see a widow as somebody who will be, they're not married anymore. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And they recognize that. And there's a lot of men out there that will absolutely take advantage of that. So just be careful.
Definitely. I think we should turn it into now, like, okay, so these are things we don't want to do. Like, how do we get the comfort then? Like specific things. And so I'll just share things that have helped me. It's really tuning everything else out, and listening to worship music really helps me. If you are like, I don't even know what worship music, like you can just look up worship music on YouTube or on Amazon Music, like anywhere, Christian music. And it's music where you're pouring out your heart to God and just crying and just like, God fill me, God fill me. And then, spending time in the Bible. If you don't even know what to do, open the Bible app. We've talked about that before, YouVersion or whatever, get something and start reading. Be involved with other Christians who are on the same path as you, like church, Bible study, or just call, like I have like a group of women I can call, like people that are going to pour into you in a healthy way when you're like, oh my goodness, I'm really tempted right now to fill this with the wrong things. Like if I'm like, okay, I'm really tempted to just like get these affirmations from a man, I need to stop and be like, I'm gonna call one of my girlfriends. She can tell me good things about me. It's not going to be like that. Or we can go on a walk, or we can do like whatever. Like I'm really feeling this right now. I'm going to just pour into what God says about who am I to God? Like, who am I? Because I know that that's definitely for me, one of my biggest struggles is wanting those positive affirmations from a man, and like learning that I don't have to have that. Like God gives me everything I need. I don't need to hear it from a man. And so just like getting back on focus and like, okay, God, fill me. You know what? I'm just going to spend time with you, and carving out that time when you would maybe go out somewhere and meet people, like to just be like focused. Okay, God, I'm on a date with you. What do you want to teach me today? And just like pouring into it. So those are some of the things that I use, or I've talked about it many times. I leave my phone at home. I go on a walk. Actually, that's like my best time. I'm like crying and just like talking out loud, and we're out in the country, so nobody hears me. And I just let the dog run, and I'm just like pouring my heart out to God. Like it feels so good. I think actually for me, that's the best thing that's helped me. So what about you? What helps you?
Yeah, I agree with all of those. And I just would like to expand more on the other people, because that helps me a lot. For me, it is people that I know would hold me accountable.
Yes.
And I'm a very honest person. I confess things to people that I know that I don't want to be in my life. And I don't want to have to tell them anything I did that was bad. And so that helps me a lot, is having that accountability that I don't have to, like, I want to be able to tell somebody when they say, how you been doing? Or, do you still get tempted by pot? And I'm like, nope. That's what I want to be able to say. And so anytime, because I still occasionally, I live in California. It's very widely available. There's literally stores, less than a mile from my house that I could just walk in and buy it. So yeah, I get tempted sometimes if I'm bored or I'm home alone or I don't have the kids or whatever it might be. The temptation creeps into my mind.
Right.
It's very quickly gone though, because I don't want to feel like that again. I don't want to feel like, or I don't want to feel like it's something I need to quit again, And so I'd just say having at least one good friend that you can confide in, that won't judge you, because that's not what we're supposed to do as believers. We're supposed to accept and talk people through them. We're all sinners, and if somebody's going to sit there and say, you shouldn't be doing that, like they need to be looking at themselves in the mirror, because we're all sinners, and it's equivalent in God's eyes, whether you're whatever. We all know what a sin is. So it doesn't matter what it is. We're all equivalent in God's eyes. We're equivalently we all equally fall short
Mm-hmm.
of the glory of God, and we all need a savior. So you need a friend who understands that,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that will hold you accountable, that will check in with you and say, hey, are your relationships staying pure? Are you, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Stuff like that. And
Right.
for me, like, I have a really good church family. I know a lot of people there, and they all care about me. And um, going there and seeing them smiling at me or telling me I'm a good dad or
Yeah.
whatever, those things like really strengthen me. But
Yeah.
the main thing is my Bible and
Yep.
asking God to speak to me, because when you have a lot of people don't want to deal with their grief by going to God, because for some reason they feel like God can't heal their grief.
Mm.
But I can tell you firsthand, when God fills your soul
Right.
with the joy of your salvation,
Mm-hmm.
you will feel great. You will
Mm-hmm.
have a deep understanding. Yeah, at least this is how it is for me. And I feel like this is just how it works. But like when I'm
Yeah.
having a grief filled moment and I go to God, like, I don't know what it is. A lot of people feel like, oh, I'm not going to waste my time praying. I need a real world thing that's going to help me.
Mm.
And, I need to go to my counselor, or I need to go, whatever it might be. For me, it's the exact opposite. When I draw close to God and I feel his presence, it gives me this large
Yeah.
vision that, like, oh yeah, like this doesn't matter. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to heaven. I'm saved by the
Mm-hmm.
King. Praise God. And it just, like, I just feel better. It pulls me
Yeah.
out of that moment. It makes me feel like, you know what, I'm fine. God's taking care
Mm-hmm.
of me. I'm going to be fine. And yeah, it hurts, but Lacey's not hurting. Lacey's
Exactly.
smiling.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are, my things, my advice for how to not fall for counterfeit comfort. It's still, we all still have grief, of course, but like, as far as if I get tempted or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like, it's just like, go to God and he'll fill you. Or like, for me, it's like the verse of the day. I've talked
Yeah.
about that before.
Yep.
There's
I
so
read
many
that every
times
day.
where I'm
Yep.
like, oh, let's see what the verse of the day is. And God's like, yeah, don't do foolish things or whatever, where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, sounds good.
Yeah. I love
Um,
that. And there is a
like,
verse.
perfect example, sorry, real quick. I just opened, because I was curious, just opened the Bible. The verse of the day is, my help comes from the Lord who made heaven and
Yes.
earth. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yep,
Perfect. There it
just
is.
spoke to me perfectly, just spoke to
Yep.
our
But
audience about
wait,
exactly what we're
I think
talking
it was speaking to me today. I already read that. God was speaking to me.
about.
Isn't it crazy? He can speak to everybody.
Isn't that amazing? I love it.
Yes. And I was just going to say there is a verse. I don't have the reference in front of me. Draw close to something about draw near to God and he will draw near to you.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think you
Yeah.
and we talked about that recently. And it's definitely true. I can feel that because I feel like what Satan tries to do to me sometimes is if I've like sinned or whatever, then he makes me feel like, okay, you're so bad, you can't talk to God. God wouldn't want to hear from
Right.
you. But then it's like, no, I can draw close to God and he will draw close to me.
So
And
that is James 4:8.
thank you. I'll put it in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a couple more things, then we can wrap it up. Just speaking about like having friends, like I actually did this with, I have two really good friends who both happen to be widows. You guys know Stacy. And then our other friend Jess, we have a group chat and we talk, all the time about everything. And I said, you know what I like? I need some advice on this. I'm like, I like because you guys are going to tell me not what I want to hear, but what I need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was actually kind of on this subject a little bit. And one of them was able to say to me, you need to get this void filled by God. Like, not by anybody else. And I was like,
That's
you're right.
awesome.
You're right. It's like, it was actually the same subject kind of, and just some stuff I'm going through and just to like go to God and not to people. Cause I tend to want to get it. Here's the other thing I've learned when I try like to get this void filled and like people become my security or whatever, they will always disappoint me. God is the only one who won't. And so it's not fair. It puts too much pressure on this person. And then they can never be what God can be to you. I've learned that definitely over time through lots of different situations. And then one more thing, this is like totally not on the subject. I should have shared it when it was like, what's been happening. So I wanted to share this just because I know you guys might relate. So we decided we've been looking for a new church and we've tried like so many. I'm kind of like done, but hopefully we'll find one. I just looked up churches on Saturday night, the one that's closest to our house we went to. Really nice people. I was like impressed by all the people who, it was an older crowd who said hi to us and everything. But I'm asking the somebody there about Bible study, and she's like, oh, well, we have one, to help improve your marriage. I don't even have a man next to me. Like, I have my kids. I'm like, where would this even come from? Like, this thought that I would have and it threw me.
Maybe she assumed your husband didn't want to go to church with you.
But don't assume like
I know.
that. I said, I'm actually widowed. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. Kind of like shocking people sometimes. But anyways, I went through grief during church. And then it like brought me back to like remembering how nice it was to have Luke put his arm around me in church. And I was like holding back tears during worship. Like, oh my gosh, like I just want him. And I actually went through, I don't go through anger, but that day I went through anger on Sunday, like a couple of days ago, like yesterday. And it made me angry that what I hate is walking into a new place where people don't know me and they just think whatever. They don't think I'm widowed. They think, you're divorced or whatever. Like, I just and it's like, I say widowed so quickly because I don't want people to judge me. Not that
I know what you mean. I walk through Target and I'm like, these people probably think I'm some weekend dad.
Exactly. I hate it.
Yeah.
But I like to tell people right away.
If the opportunity presents itself, I tell them to, but you know what? Like, that's okay. They can assume whatever they want because they're going to forget about you by the end of the day. They're not going to remember who that, and honestly, much sooner than that, they're going to forget about you.
I know. It's just
and there was a quote that I heard, I've heard it before in the past, but I heard it again recently. It said, you wouldn't care what people think about you if you knew how little.
Yes, that's a good quote. I know. I told that to my kids before. Yeah.
But so that verse that you said, draw near to God and he will draw near to you, is, like I said, is James 4:8. And what's crazy is I actually was going to bring up one of my favorite verses, my favorite verse from James. It's 4:7. It's the one right before that. It says, well, I'm going to read it the way I know it. There's a different version. Submit yourselves to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you.
Perfect.
And that is like perfectly in line with our discussion here, because just keep, and actually the way I know it, I read the word submit here. Actually, the way I know it is obey God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you, because you become a waste of time for God, or excuse me, for the devil. If he's sitting there tempting you, but you say no and you obey God, and he's tempting you and you say, because Satan knows how to tempt you. He knows your weaknesses. He knows that you're looking for affirmation from men. Yep. It doesn't matter. He knows exactly, and he'll send people at you.
Yes, that is very true.
But you obey God, you resist the devil, and eventually he'll flee from you. He'll be like, this is a waste of my time. This person's a strong believer. So I just wanted to say that, because that really has helped me a lot, that I'm just awesome. Like, obey God, obey God, obey God. Every time there's a temptation, obey God, resist the devil, obey God, resist the devil. This isn't going to fulfill my heart. This isn't going to fulfill my heart. Don't chase this, So,
and I think something that you really taught me is like keeping that eternal perspective, and so just reminding yourself when you are tempted or whatever, like just keep that eternal perspective. Like sometimes I just have to remind myself, like, this is not our home. I get to go join Luke soon, like this isn't it. This isn't it. And so this stuff doesn't matter. Like,
right. Yeah. And as far off as you might think it is or isn't, we don't know. I personally believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. So I believe that Christ could come any day now. But we don't know how, maybe we have another 50 years on this earth. Who knows? Maybe we have another 60 years. Who knows? I know obviously that's age permitting or whatever, but that being said, even if it's 100 years, that is really a short blip of time.
Right.
It's like a grain of sand compared to all the beaches on earth, compared to eternity. So we just gotta stick it out for God, So exactly. I love that. I love trying to remind myself of that eternal perspective of like, I'm saved. I'm saved. I'm saved. I'm saved.
Yep. It's awesome.
So,
well, do you want to close us in prayer, or did you have any final thoughts?
No, I think
we covered it.
Here's one more thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
Don't fall for counterfeit comfort.
Don't do it. Don't.
Because it will come and it will not fulfill what you're looking for.
Right.
You lost your spouse. That's a very difficult thing that we all have to go through. And you're not going to find something that makes you feel better. So anyways, yeah, I will pray for us.
All right.
Father God, I pray for all of our listeners that you would deliver strength and courage to obey you and resist the devil. And I pray that you would cause him to flee from us quickly as we get confronted with temptations, because sin looks appealing, and you know our hearts, and you know how weak we can be. And so I just pray for anybody listening who feels that any kind of vulnerability in their life, that you would give them the strength and the courage to press into you. We thank you for this time. We thank you for this opportunity to speak to people. I pray that these words have helped at least one person.
Yes.
That somebody would just feel like, yeah, I'm not going to do that or whatever. And you're such a good God to us. And I pray that you would just fill everybody right now with the joy of their salvation, of what it means that Christ died on the cross. Like, please give us all the perspective of the magnitude of how huge that is. And we thank you. We thank you for peace. We thank you for love. We thank you for your son, Jesus. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We appreciate you listening. I hope this has helped you. If you want to reach out to us for prayer or just anything you want to share, we always get back to you. You can email us at widowedtoosoonm@gmail.com, and that's with the number 2, or find us on Facebook or Instagram, all the places. Also, we're still looking for guests. If you would like to be a guest on our show, give us an email.
Come on,
you're waiting. You're waiting. Okay. So if you really like this episode, give it a little bing, 5 stars. And we'd also appreciate it if you wanted to type out a little review. It helps us get the word out to other people. So what else? Oh, follow my TikTok at Widow Goals. I'm getting close to 10K. Got to get there.
Yeah, you haven't fallen yet, huh?
No, I haven't had any falling ones recently, or really being up on things, but people keep on that same one because it has a million views, not a million, but a lot. They say, why are you on the counter? Why are you on the counter? And I always say, because I can be. And I actually made a video about it. Let me just share one little side note. So somebody wrote a really mean comment that I actually responded to in a video. So the comment was, wow, you actually seem happy about it, shaking my head. And it was about being a widow. And so I did a great response about the joy of the Lord and how he's turned my mourning into dancing, and did a great response. And all these widows were like, yeah, I wouldn't have been so kind. And just that's what it's about. It's about God. It's not about me. It's not about, whatever. But why haters gotta hate? I don't get it. Yeah. I mean, that's not even the worst one, but
it makes people feel better about themselves, I think.
Yeah,
in a subconscious kind of way, they feel like if I can say oh, this person is this, it makes them feel like I would never do that. I'm better.
Yeah,
we're all guilty of it. We're all. Right. I mean, I would never post a mean comment. I would never. But we're all guilty of our own little things,
relate. I would never post something mean on somebody's stuff. So, and I know you wouldn't either. So it's hard for me to relate. But anyways, we've already wrapped it on up. Don't want to get into a whole other discussion. But thanks you guys for joining us, and we'll be back next week. Have a fabulous day.
And then one more thing, I had to confess, the thing that I said, come on, you want to do it or something like that a few minutes ago. I was talking about wanting people to be a guest on our show.
Oh, I thought you were waiting for my bing.
No, I wasn't actually waiting for the bing this time. Please, if you feel courage to reach out and share your story, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your story. We really would like to branch this out so that more people have somebody that they can listen to that has a more similar story to theirs.
Yes.
So if you feel courageous, if you feel like you'd like to share your story, I can tell you personally, and Michelle would agree, it helps to talk about it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So or don't think your story is not good enough or whatever, just reach out to us. So we're looking for guests. Be our guests. Be our guests.
Put our service to the test. Remember last time?
I think it's
it is.
Right.
Tie the
I thought there was something about magic. Okay, sorry, we're wrapping it up.
We did that last time. Okay.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you next time. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.